Hello and welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video here on the channel. And today, we're in the Hydra boss for a specific reason, or should I say a specific head called the Head of Decay, where if you don't lock him down with the Provoke debuff, he's gonna do some nasty effects like this. So can we get him to do it? One more hit. There we go, he's cleansing all of those debuffs, and if you don't control him after that, he's gonna follow in with that life barrier shield, and you know those times where they digest one of your champions and then the shield goes up and you find it so hard to get them back, and before you know it, your champion is completely gone. So in today's video, I'm gonna be breaking down the top 20 champions in my opinion to play the role as a provoker, are primarily ones that have other utility in their kit, to just support your team in the process or inflict some damage. So let's just get a bit of a free regroup to see what happens when we provoke him. And also let me know in the comment section below, what kind of champions have you built to fulfill this role for your team? There we go, we got the provoke. And now that head can do absolutely nothing. And we're actually using a provoke set on Nekmofar in this team, so we don't even have a dedicated provoker and it's still very consistent over the course of the run. But I would say when you're doing that, just make sure that the champion you've got it on has multiple AoE effects, so you have more chances to land. And also the right affinity for the rotation that you're facing. Like right now, Nekmo is Spirit, and so is Decay. So can we cycle this round again here? Here he goes. I'm actually going to have a full video on this team very soon, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to check that one out. And it's for Oboro, who's really shocked me in what she can bring to a Hydra team. Alright, can we place it again here? We've also got Jing 1. Justice for Jing 1 has been served. He is top tier now for the Hydra. Increased defense. Alright, come on. Look, he's feeling shy now. We just did a whole run where we got a crazy amount of damage. And now he doesn't want to place it. It's all good. Come on, Nekmo. I know you've got another turn in you, buddy. We could do it. Ally attack or something, please? Alright, he's feeling shy, guys. He's feeling shy, but we get the gist. You need a provoke to stop him from using all of his active skills to just add that layer of consistency to your run. So, alright, let's head into it. I'm going to say my first champion. Actually, no. We'll start off with my top 3 favorite ones that I like to use. And it's going to be... well, he was on the screen. We can show the builds as well, right? Gallius Bloodcrest, who's a mythical. I know not many players may have their hands on him, but also many players call him trash, and he definitely makes it into my 1 billion Nightmare Hydra team. And what does it come down to? He's got an AoE provoke for a duration of 2 turns when you're facing a boss, which the Head of Decay is, and then he'll place it unkillable and a counterattack on himself to play the role as a mischief tank with the highest amount of buffs. He can then lead in with an enemy max HP when he is counterattacking, as well as some restoration of HP, also to counter the Head of Decay when he's destroying the HP on our champions. And then we've got a revive on death and increased defense if you don't have a dedicated reviver or increased defense option in your team to like amplify the damage of Mishinakis, Harimas, just to name a few. So yeah, if you do have him, I highly recommend it, but just leave him in his base form because his alternate one is primarily focused on PvP and inflicting damage, which I'd say he definitely needs a buff in terms of that secondary form anyway. My second favorite one for this role, who would I go with in terms of ones that I've used in the past? I'm going to go with Bivold of the Fawn, actually, a previous fusion. And fun fact, ages ago when the Hydra was released, you actually couldn't provoke him, and that was around the time that Bivold was a fusion. So many players skipped out on it like, oh, I don't need this anymore. And then guess what? Now you can provoke the Head of Decay, so it became a lot more easier. And, you know, many players did actually miss out on it because of that change at the time. But anyway, he actually has an AoE 2-time hitter with a chance of placing a provoke, which is what we're focusing on today, as well as a chance of placing Leech to heal by 18% of the damage inflicted. So if you don't have another healer, he can definitely, you know, recoup your team over the run. Also, if you don't have a strengthening in your team, and he's the only one with it because he places it on himself, that's a role of a mischief tank for you right there. He also attacks all enemies with an increasing of damage for each debuff on an enemy, and heals allies by 20% alongside a shield for further protection. And let's just say you're struggling to cycle around your skills because it's on a 3-turn cooldown and you don't have enough speed on him. He does have an A1 that also has a chance to land a Provoke, so you've got the best of both worlds here for constant lockout, sorry. One other thing that's worth noting, that those debuffs can land as weak hits as well. So let's just say you're in a bad rotation and you still want to place that Provoke. You could do it through something like Poison Cloud, or if it's just a negative affinity. So yeah, Bivold, a very top choice, one of my personal favorites. And last but not least, who makes it as one of my favorites here? Do you know what? I'm going to do this one for the Coroner haters. Let's do it. Coroner, where are you, buddy? Skinwalkers. So we got another Skinwalker to match up with Gallius. And the reason why I say Coroner is he has all AoE attacks with the A1 and A2. He brings in Bust for himself. I'm going to mention Mischief targeting a lot because we did mention other roles. But Provoke on just a placement, that's very nice. And then we've also got a decreased attack and a decreased defense and another AoE attack here. So the best build that I see for him is Hex if you are lacking that in your team, but also that Provoke that I keep banging on about. So if we just head in here, go down to Provoke, we got a 30% chance to place a Provoke debuff. Now, because Corrin is constantly counterattacking with his passive when those debuffs are active, you actually just get more chance to land that Provoke over the run. So very strong, build him in Cruelty Blessings. If you've got a high star one, I highly recommend it. So the next one on the list is going to be Morley Tankard, who's also a part of the Guardian Ring Unbinding of Champions, right? In the Token Trader. And do you think that Raid is ever going to change this? We have seen these same portraits since the feature's release, so I'd like to see some new ones added to the list, or even just drop down the live token cost. You know, occasionally, maybe have one for like 2k or 1,500, and players may consider it, because 4k is extremely expensive. I did actually buy a Tomb Lord in the past. That's when I was struggling with speed farming for the Ice Golem, before the hard variation came out. But Morley Tankard, she is in there, and she was also a fusion ages ago. But in the Dwarfs, what can she bring to the table? Where is she? Morley! I was just thinking, I don't even have her, you see? So she's actually got this Provoke on all enemies for 1 turn with the chance of placing it for 2 turns instead. So if you can do that, it's just ensuring a constant lockout of Decay, as well as a reflect damage on this champion for 2 turns. Her passive can fill the turn meters of allies by 25% when hit by a boss, so every single time on that 1 turn cooldown once booked, you're just getting those turn meter fills, which I feel like is an underrated aspect to any team. We've also got a Revival with a block damage, so if one of your champions falls, she's picking him straight back up and inflicts more damage against targets under HP burn, which is a debuff that many players bring in. So overall, simple but effective, counters any affinities of Decay. A really cool one to pick up if you got her. Next up here, we're going to go into Krisk, the Ageless, another champion that I don't have, Void Legendary. And he's still, to this day, one of the best champions in the game for PvE, in my personal opinion. What does he bring to the table? Well, he's got a Provoke debuff on a 3-turn cooldown, an increased defense on himself, and an increased speed on all allies, which pairs very well with those decreased speeds that he also brings in his kit on this A1 ability. And we've got ally protection to just, I don't know, survive the slaughter of the Head of Wrath. And then the shields as well as decreased defense and decreased attack when he's hit. So yeah, very strong synergy. Once again, like the Coroner, opens the opportunity for Hex or Provoke sets, and just puts in a great job for your team with that buff extension as well. One other thing, did I mention that throughout the Head of Decay, like, one other bad situation is, like, if you don't put the Provoke, Head of Wrath gets increased attack, he wipes you out, Poison Cloud happens, life barriers, you name it, it's a nasty time. I think I just said that at the start of the video, but just in case. That's why we want to have him under control, right? So next up here, we've got Grazor. Damn it, YSC, you just mentioned a lot of Void Legos. We're going to change that up very soon. Don't you guys worry about it. So another champion that I would love to summon with my Void Shards one day. And I'm actually going to do 1 Void Shard and a Dream towards the end, even though there's no event on, because Grazor's coming to my account today. So we got a Provoke, and also an increased resistance and increased defense on all allies. Now, when you pair this with decreased accuracy, it's like why I use Feral the Barkwood. He brings in these effects, and you just alleviate all the debuffs coming your way, such as the Provokes and us from Head of Wrath, right? And we've also got an AoE attack, which heals this champion by 10% and increases the duration of ally buffs, keeping them up, as well as an enemy max HP nuke for those Hydra heads. We've then got a shield here on that A1 and a passive, which is similar to Vogoth, but he only heals by 35% of the damage received from those boss attacks, and it has no cooldown on that passive effect. But as an active effect, will place an unkillable on himself when receiving a fatal hit. So, you know, in those bad situations, if he takes a big smack, he just has a chance of surviving that, right? And getting straight back in the fight. So as promised, we're heading away from the Void legendaries now, and we're going to go into the Barbarians. So Kantra the Cyclone, also a previous fusion, if I'm not mistaken, but she looks very, very cool as a Barbarian. I'm a huge fan of the aesthetic, and she's actually got a very unique way of placing that Provoke, because if you see down here, has a 75% chance of placing a Provoke on enemies under 5 or more debuffs at the start of this champion's turn. And just being able to do that every single time as a passive effect, I think is very, very strong. And in the Hydra, if you're going to speak about 5 debuffs, that's the area where you're probably going to see it from all of your champions. We've also got some survivability and some healing with the passive here and receiving less damage. But look at all of the effects that she can bring, but it's on like an RNG basis. So she'll attack all enemies 3 times. Each hit has a chance of placing one of the following effects. So we've got block buffs, decreased attack, decreased speed, weaken, decreased accuracy, and heal reduction. All as a chance of placement. I would say the one thing that I maybe don't care about is the heal reduction. But the rest of the debuffs here, regardless of what place is going to add a huge impact for your team, right? It's things that we're looking for. And then we've got A1 that can steal buffs, whether that be Mischief, Stealing and Spreading, and she can just steal some of those back. So overall, strong champion, and also this champion can place weak debuffs on weak hits, So all of these against the wrong affinity still has a chance of placing there. So next up, we have got Skull Lord Vargal straight out of the Lizardman. If I'm not mistaken, Skull Lord, where are you, buddy? There he is. And he was actually one of the most unique fusions we've ever seen, because you had to farm up 16 Skull Swans from the campaign to get this champion. I actually feel like they should do that in the future. It was quite fun, quite quirky, and you can also like do champion training while you're farming more Skull Swans, so it's the best of both worlds. So what does he bring? He's got this A2 that has a strengthen on himself for mischief targeting, as well as a provoke as a placement on a 2-turn cooldown. So that's going to be so consistent for locking out Head of Decay. We've got a decreased attack for mitigating incoming damage, as well as a destroying of HP stuff here. Not really caring about that. And a repeating of attack that can fill his turn meter to just cycle round to his turns faster. So he's a simple but effective champion, very tanky, hard to kill. And if all you need is a provoke, Skull-Lord can definitely fit into one of your 3 teams. This next one is actually Husk from the Undead Hordes. And I was in 2 minds about this, but I feel like having it on a default attack alongside an enemy max HP, he has to be mentioned in the top 20 in my personal opinion. Because he's got an A1 with a 40% chance of placing a provoke as an each hit placement, which is actually pretty nice. Like if you're bringing in ally attack champions, you know, it just gives you more of a chance to land that provoke over the run. And it's also worth noting that loads of these champions could be like a secondary provoker. So let's just say you've got one of the other ones I mentioned today, and then provokes in the team from Husk as well. Let's just say you get 3% resisted, or they get devoured from one of their heads. At least you've got a nice backup one with a good chance that brings in some stuff for the Hydra in terms of max HP. So that's an instance that you could do using multiple ones in the comps to just keep it consistent, right? We've actually got a free one that I think is on the thumbnail, so I'm sure many of you guys are coming to check this one out. And it's a Vizix the Unbowed. What a champion. What a champion. Now, she does have a provoke, and being void affinity means you're countering all of the rotations that you're going to be facing. She also places a shield on herself for some protection, and it's all on a 3-turn cooldown. And then we've got this AoE of decreased speed to slow down the Hydra heads, as well as an ally protection to support your team. And the A1's a bit useless because you cannot fill this champion by the turn meter that they lose, because you cannot drop down the turn meter of the Hydra heads. But overall, 2 simple but effective kits that can add a huge value to any players out there. So if you've just got her, congratulations. She's going to be massive for your teams when you're progressing. So heading into the Bannerlords faction, we've actually got Sigmund the High Shield, who I think is one of the most underrated champions of all time in Raid. I hardly ever see this guy used. Please let me know in the comment section below if you're a huge supporter of this champion, because he does bring an AoE chance to provoke, Granted, it's not a 100% chance, but on an each hit placement on a 75%, you're more than likely to place this. And we've also got a chance to place a decrease attack debuff. Following on from that, a 3-turn cooldown strengthen and a shield on all allies, which is a huge form of protection. We got some removing of buffs as well, random ones. If you get stolen or if Head of Wrath gets an increased attack, you could just take that off. And then whenever this champion is attacked, has a chance of reducing the duration of those buffs that they may have active if you don't have full control. So overall, I think he's one that players should be using if you are lacking a Provoke and you don't have better options here. So next up, we have got Vaultkeeper Wixwell, one of the most recent fusions, also from the Bannerlords, no? No, he's from the Sacred Order. And I know that he's been into all of these Yannicka teams where you extend those shield values and it's crazy and you do like billions of damage. But outside of that, for more traditional teams as well, we've also just got a decrease attack, an increasing of duration of ally buffs, and then also the shield growth as well. And then we've got this intercept to counter those crowd control effects, as well as increased defense and shield on allies proportional to his defense. But the main thing is, he is the best A1 provoker in the game. We have got a 100% chance against bosses once booked on a 2-time hitter to land that debuff. So even if you weak hit on the first hit against some affinities, the second one is surely to place as well. So just giving you that double chance. So not having to rely on cooldowns, great overall champion to bring into the Hydra, and he places this counterattack as well for some mischief tanking. So yeah, to be honest, I should be using Vaultkeeper a lot more as well, personally. I've still not put him in any of my teams since I pulled this champion, now that I think of it. Do you know what? Vaultkeeper Wixwell video for Hydra coming out soon. How about that? I'm looking forward to that one now. So I'm just looking at my big list of champions. What's next? Because we have 20 to get through, right? All right, Shadowkin faction. There's only one way to enter this faction, all right? Lord Genzin has to let us in. All right, so the next one's going to be Genzin. I'm joking. I wish he was. So it's going to be Harima. And the way that I use her personally, like I mentioned before with the Husk, is my secondary provoker. But she could be your primary one as well if you got her fast enough to cycle her skills. Because this A3 does have a placement of Provoke on a 3-turn cooldown. And then we got all of that damage all around the board. Talk about one of the best damage dealers in the game. And do you know what? I'm going to show you a build while we're here as well. Because I was on stream and somebody was asking to see it. I have got a dedicated video. But since I got the 6-star soul, which I've actually put in Crushing Rend, she can pop out a crazy amount of damage on those Hydra heads. And there's sometimes where, you know, right now it's the wrong affinity. I could show you right now, actually. Where the head of Decay is the spirit affinity. So, you know, sometimes my Gallius gets 3% resisted or weak hit, sorry. And then Harima is just a nice backup just in case. And you can see how much damage that she can do under the right build, like almost 500 million. It's crazy. And pairs very well with Lady Mikage, who I finally got. So yeah, Harima definitely makes it onto the top 20 list as one of the best provokers in the game. So this one's actually Jizzo. And how many of you guys hate this champion? I did, for years. And to be honest, I still don't use him. However, if I was progressing through the game nowadays, and you're guaranteed to get this champion so early on, do not feed him. So if we just head into this A3, he actually has a chance to place a Provoke for a 2-turn duration on a 4-turn cooldown, as well as a continuous heal buff on this champion for 2 turns for potential mischief tanking. Like, if all you want is a Provoke and you're first coming into the Hydra, this is a very cool champion that you could put into your teams, and he's also got bonus buffs here as well for some bonus mischief tanking potential, but it's just on a 5-turn cooldown, so you may need to rely on like reflex gear to cycle that around, right, for those cooldowns. But apart from that, if all you want is to provoke a 2-turn duration, there's not many champions in the game that can do that for your team. So yeah, I think it was worth mentioning in the top 20, just as a budget option. Now, heading straight back into the Void Legendaries, we have got one that's not been mentioned for a pretty long time, and it's going to be Solus. And he definitely is Solus when you talk about Head of Decay, because he increases the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. We're seeing how powerful this is with champions such as Loki, right? If you can do that, it just ensures those debuffs stay up for a better duration. We then have a Provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, and being Void means you can target all of those affinities, as well as a shield buff on this champion equal to 30%, and damage increases by 10% for each debuff on the target. So he's inflicting nice damage, provokes, increasing durations is what we like to see. Now in terms of this part here, it's randomized, so you've got a bit of RNG going on, but he's got another skill to place a Provoke at a 3-time hitter at random, which you can also remove buffs, so if Head of Mischief spreads a ton, you could just take those off, right? But place a Provoke debuff for 1 turn, and if a buff was removed, the Provoke cannot be resisted. But I think you'll probably be building him with accuracy anyway, right? And then an A1 stun. So overall, not a crazy kit, but he does bring in a lot for the Hydra boss, and 2 chances to place Provokes on active skills. So next up here, we've got an Epic, and I used it recently when I was showcasing Loki, and it's from the Undead Hordes. And a big shout out to Nub Raids for this one, actually, because this video I was actually writing up for an article for their website as well on hellhades.com, where if you don't have any of these champions, by the way, be sure to check out the full list of Provokers on the website, because there is many other options that maybe just don't do it as a better chance as these top 20. But Seeker has a very strong chance at a, 50% chance on a 2-time hitter to place a Provoke. That's very nice, and if you've got him built for the clan boss anyway, for some of those unkillable teams out there, you know, it's a no-brainer to bring him into the Hydra to get a double value. We got the Tailwind for 10 meter fields of all allies by 30%, which, like I mentioned earlier, has a huge impact on your teams to cycle your skills, as well as an increased attack to amplify the damage of your nukers, and grants an extra turn to lead straight back in for a Provoke chance. Apart from that, some increased defense stuff with the passive, but that's the 2 things that you'll be using him for. So yeah, if you don't have any other options, don't underestimate Seeker to play that role for your team, guys. So heading into the Skinwalkers, this one is so controversial, but also not controversial. And the reason why War Chief is on the list, I know, guys, I know, boo, boo. He definitely is in dire need of a buff, right? But let's just say you're lacking legendary skill tomes, you don't have better options or whatever that may be, and you're like, damn it, all I want is a Provoke debuff. Like, my Provoke gear is spread everywhere. I don't have the gear sets to put on other champions here, or AoE attackers to put them on. Well, he actually has a Provoke debuff for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown without needing the books. Now, if you do decide to book him, you get a 2-turn, but on a 3-turn duration, you really don't need to rely on those books there, guys. And also steals 2 random buffs from the target. So let's just say that Head of Decay has already been provoked. He's got like 2 turns left or something, and Head of Wrath gets an increased attack. You could just change the target, steal that away from Wrath so he's not nuking you as hard as before. And we've also got another chance to provoke and some reflection of damage with the passive, which I'm sure many of us have died to in the Doom Tower, right? In some of the waves. But yeah, all he is, provoker, budget option, if you pulled him, and that's all you want, put him in your team, right? Definitely put him in your team. And he's not gear intensive as well. I was saying, like, I actually did another video with Nubs of champions who need a buff. And I just feel like if they gave him another skill that could place buffs on himself, like Taunt or Counterattack, and maybe give him some form of max HP somewhere, I think we'll see a lot more of War Chief, personally. So let's head into the Orcs next. And Void Legendary Angar. Now, I hate this champion. I hate him. I'm happy to say that, but I can't like neglect the fact that he's a strong provoker for many players out there, because as a Void champion, you don't get those weak affinity disadvantages, and he places the debuff for 1 turn with a 75% chance of placing it for a 2-turn duration. So like I mentioned with champions such as Gallius, it's so hard to find this, and he definitely can do that for your team. I kind of wish that it would just be a straight out 2-turn duration without a chance, but there we go. You then got Reflect Damage and Counterattack on this champion for a bit of mischief tanking going on. A passive to reapply Provoke as well, as long as a decreased attack when the enemy's under Provoke. And then another chance to Provoke. So very similar to that War Chief stuff. If all you want is Provoke, Angar can definitely do that for your squad. I'm actually very excited to speak about this next one, actually. So we've got Skiramis, who's an epic from the High Elves faction. And the first time I seen him mentioned properly was from Ash. And I was like, Ash, what you on about, buddy? Like, Skiramis, really? Is he that good? Well, he actually is, because he's got an AoE provoke on a 3-turn cooldown. We've got the mischief tanking as well, by placing counterattack and continuous heal on this champion for 2 turns. We then got an AoE that decreased the duration of enemy buffs by 1 turn, as well as a decreased attack to mitigate damage. And then you get a 10 meter fill if you do decrease the duration of some of those buffs. So, countering any buffs that does slip through onto the heads occasionally could help you out. And then an A1 with some 10 meter stuff, right? Seeing some 10 meter, but overall, a nice budget option from the epic rarity, nice cooldowns on a 3-turn, mischief tank and provoke. Can't go wrong with a champion like Skiramis, right? So we kind of started with the Bivold, so we don't have to go back to Dare. So the last one on the list actually is Archer. I know that nobody can get her anymore. I personally don't have her either, but you cannot mention a top 20 Provoker list without Archer, in my opinion. Because we've got a Hex and a Provoke, right? If you're facing a boss, the duration goes to a 3-turn and a 2-turn, so constant lockout of Decay. And then we've got the chance of placing a decreased speed as well to slow down the boss, as well as filling the turn meters if a 30% decreased speed is placed by this skill. We've got an increased accuracy if you're struggling to reach the accuracy thresholds when you're going through the difficulty rankings, as well as some healing effects when the Hex is on the targets, right? When she's attacked. So overall, a very powerful champion that I wish that I had, and I did actually try to push for her on numerous occasions. And I don't know, maybe one day they'll collab with Monster Hunter again and give us a chance to get her, right? But if she was a guaranteed, I would have definitely went for the Archer. So yeah, guys, that was my top 20 list. Please let me know in the comment section below if I missed out some of your favorites that you feel should have made it. Like I mentioned at the start, there is other champions such as Nari the Lucky, right? I'll give you some honorable mentions actually. So Nari the Lucky, it's the 4-turn cooldown because now you have to bank on a gear set such as Reflex or Merciless to reset the cooldown so you can keep it constant onto the boss. But as a secondary provoker, you can just get away with a 4-turn cooldown, but just didn't slightly make the top 20 list. If this was a 3-turn, he definitely would have though, because of decreased accuracy and decreased resistance, which I'm a huge fan of, as well as the buff stealing effects. There's champions such as Garrel, from the Orcs. Shout out to Saf. I know he's loving using Garrel. But once again, 4-turn cooldown, and you don't really want to rely on those gear sets. Maybe Merciless, if you're trying to ignore some effects. Just to show you guys. So if we head down into here. Merciless, if you've got enough of the set to start with, right? So you get the chance to reduce a random skill cooldown, but also a chance to ignore defense. So Garrel, technically, if you got her in that, could be a strong option, right? Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, for sure. Garrel's a pretty strong one here and inflicts some crazy damage from what I've seen. But yeah, on that note, that is going to be all for today's video, guys. If you did find it enjoyable, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. As promised, we've got one voice shard and a dream. We got a rare champion, and I'll see you all on a video soon. Peace.